All right, welcome to Chuck Builds. Today we're going over my garage golf simulator. I wanted to show you that I could still fit a truck with a lift underneath it, but we'll get set up right now. This is version 2. Welcome to Chuck Builds. Today I'm going to be recreating my golf simulator in my garage. I recently caught the net while driving through it with my truck. I have a camper hanging from the roof and it caught a little bit of the net and pulled on it and just kind of bent everything out of shape. But I'm going to take this as an opportunity to improve upon my initial design because after about 2 years of having it, I found some areas for improvement. And most notably was the sag in the middle where the two EMT conduits came together. With the weight, it got kind of crooked, and when it was rolling, it was just all over the place. And then I did not have a good way to attach the screen to the conduit. The clips broke, the tape melted, the bolts kind of ripped through. So I've got an idea for that too. Let's dive in. So first and foremost, I have purchased two 10-foot EMT conduits, 1 inch in diameter, so that I can reuse my Pillowblock bearings from before. For the top bar, I have some Unistrut. It's really strong and it has a center channel. The EMT fits inside of this center channel. I'm gonna use some bolts to make sure that the conduit is attached to this, that it all spins as one piece. But this through the middle is 10 feet. It's gonna add a lot of rigidity, and we have mounting holes now for the screen. So I'm gonna put some bolts with the stud out so that I can just screw on the screen and hopefully upgrade it easily in the future if I decide to do so. The downside of this is it adds quite a bit of weight, but we get a lot more rigidity out of it as well. So we're no longer gonna be hanging it from the garage door. I just don't want to take the risk of bending anything with all this extra weight. And we're gonna be using some perforated steel, 90-degree perforated steel with holes. This is what's used on the ceiling to hold the garage door, and it can hold a lot of weight. So I've purchased quite a bit of this. I've got 2 6-foot sections that I'm gonna cut in half to get the height from the ceiling down to below the garage door. And I have 2 kits that I purchased on Amazon that come with a decent amount of this right angle steel for a pretty good price. And it comes with all the nuts and bolts that you need as well. And I think with just buying the steel on its own at Lowe's and then buying the kit on Amazon, it's pretty cost effective. We'll be using these to mount the Pillowblock bearings and also build some structure to support this and prevent it from twisting while it hangs from the ceiling. In addition to the Unistrut, I have some tools from makerpipe.com, and I got this idea from their video. They have lots of stuff on how to use conduit and to build things, and they have all kinds of connections and elbows. But they have these little threaded inserts that I can take the threaded insert and stick it inside of the tube, and then I can screw it together and hopefully get a very strong bond. If I have both tubes here and then just twist them together, I'll get a super rigid straight line to hang the screen. And I think that's gonna help with rolling, with wrinkles, and just making sure everything goes smoothly. First thing I'm gonna do is cut the perforated steel and try and get the supports hanging from the side of the garage. I'm gonna be hanging it from the ceiling joists and then coming down on the sides of the garage, outside of the garage door, but under it as well, so that the garage door is never in the way. I don't have to worry about that getting caught. But when it rolls up, I need to make sure it rolls up tight enough that my truck can still fit under it without snagging like last time. I have both of them marked in half here and here. And remember, safety first with ear and eye protection, especially when cutting metal. What I'm about to do is check for stud placement. I expect one right about here. Looks like we got that. Because I could hit both of the joists here and come down with the 2 that I need and still have this rock solid up here. This to me seems to make the most sense. I don't think we need much more than 2. It's not that heavy. I just don't want it moving around. The measurements are kind of one of the things that makes this so hard. It's different for everybody. Depends on your garage. It depends on the screen you ordered. On my last simulator that I had set up in here, I kind of just winged it and it worked out really well. And I had a few areas that I could add adjustment with lengths of bolts and different holes on the perforated steel. So I'm trying to go that route again and give me as many options as I can. But you want the bottom of the screen to just barely touch the ground. If it's too loose, you're gonna have too many wrinkles. If it's not touching, a ball can roll underneath. Ideally, it would just touch. It's gonna be a lot heavier this time around with the Unistrut and then the half-size Unistrut at the bottom to stretch it. We're gonna try and keep some options baked in. I'm using the included bolt hardware that came with the kit from Amazon, and I'll be taking the perforated steel with the outside angle away because I want to make sure I get clearance on the existing garage door track. Seems to bite hard, so that's good. And then I've got my second screw here. So initially I had used this 3-foot bit of perforated steel and attached it to the ceiling, and then I was thinking about hanging all of this after and decided to get the spacing right. I'm gonna start in reverse and start with the Pillowblock bearing. I used some of the steel from the Amazon kit, cut in half, or cut some, so that we have 3 holes on either side. Bolted that to the Pillowblock here. I have the nuts facing down so that I can keep an easier eye on it, make sure it's not working loose over time. And then I'm going to connect it here to the 3rd hole. And then that way when I hang it up, I just have to match the top holes and I don't have to guess as much the spacing for this aspect, the width of the Pillowblock space. And I'm using washers just because I bought a big kit of washers. It looks like it would fit without, so you may not need them, but I had bought all of these parts kind of blindly, spaced out over time, and I'm just trying to use it while I have it. I'm keeping everything just kind of finger tight right now. I'll go back with an impact and tighten it up, but I want to be able to adjust things without needing tools every time. Probably end up with some of this extra perforated steel and come across here and bolt it to give it some rigidity and make sure it's not moving around too much. I've hung the Pillowblock bearing on both ends of the garage. I know at some point I'm gonna need some cross bracing, and I've got all the bolts loose right now. I'm gonna try to adjust right here the height. Once I get the screen on, I'll just be able to unbolt those and move it up until it's just right. And then I'll worry about adjusting the sway and make sure it's rigid. But so far, it's moving along all right. The crossbar right now is touching both walls of my garage, and I have this much overlap. I'm not gonna go all the way to the wall, but I don't wanna go just to the edge of the Pillowblock bearing because I still need to attach the jack shaft garage door opener. So I think I'm gonna pull it back about 1 foot on both ends and see if that's enough, and at least I'll start there. I'm hesitant to cut too much off at a time because I don't want to end up too short. But I'm going to start with these cuts, get it down to size a little bit, and then we'll work on getting it inside of the Unistrut. So next up, we'll be putting our pipe inserts inside of the conduit. I'm using the edge of the garage wall that has a few inches of concrete up as my backstop. It bends these metal tabs, so you want to make sure the angle of it's right. But they're not that strong, it's kind of bending, and I can't seem to get it just right on the tightness. So what I think I'm gonna do is take this apart and use the other 2 inserts, so there's 2 on each side. I'm really glad I did that because it's a much better connection now. It's not bending nearly as much, and it's making pretty good contact, keeping it straight. So definitely would recommend using all 4 of those inserts. So I'm about to slide the conduit through the Unistrut. So I got a bolt with a washer into one of these holes, and it took a little bit of finagling. It's easy to get one side of the washer in, but to get both in there, actually that one went right away. It was a little bit of a challenge at first, but I think if I clamp it in here, we should be able to get the screen attached as well, and I don't think it'll be going anywhere, especially if I can tighten down that nut with an impact or something. We're just getting ready to attach the pillow blocks to this crossbeam and make sure the crossbeam all rolls as one, and that's where I think that these bolts are going to come into play, building that tension. I've got two washers, one that's slightly larger than the other. I don't think that matters too much, but as big of a washer as you can fit into these half-channel slots, a nut and a bolt, and I've got the measurements for those in the description. I think it's 5/16. So I'm going to put the bigger washer up against the bolt, and we're going to find a slot here that lines up with this hole, and I think we're going to be able to fit it right here, but it might be a little extra slack than I'd like right here, but I'm a little bit more concerned about a stable attachment than wrinkles at the moment. And so I'm just going to slide the washer in, and you're only going to be able to get about half of it in at a time. And then I'm going to take a screwdriver and just kind of use it to wiggle it all into place. And the reason I want it up against the edge is for like maximum contact with the metal. So that way when I crank down on it with like a impact, we've got a good clamp effect. Be less of a concern of wiggling around. Hope you can see this. All right, so that's in there. And it's pretty sturdy. I mean, it's not immediately gonna go anywhere. So put it through the hole, clamp with a washer, and then tighten with the nut. And I'm going to come back with an impact and get these. I have bolted the top of the screen to the Unistrut, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. There's a few areas where the bolts didn't match up and there's a little bit of slack, but it's not terrible, and I'm not sure with the hanging weight if that's going to be a cause of wrinkles or not. But the bolts thankfully made a very strong connection with the Unistrut, so I can twist the conduit and roll up the screen. I've just gone through and tightened the bolts, so I've now taken off the Pillowblock bearing that we hung earlier, and I've attached it. I think it's going to be easier to hang it with the bearing already attached than try to thread it through. I don't have it clamped down tight, everything's loose, and I'm going to try and get up on that ladder and see if we can start hanging this thing. All right, so I've got the screen hung. It's looking all right. I've got to kind of adjust everything. All the bolts are loose, all the nuts are loose, but I think I need to adjust everything, tighten it up. But so far, I'm really liking the look of this. I didn't expect this top part to hang so badly, like down. So that's something I need to explore, as well as getting a foam pad across that, because this looks like just a recoil machine. We're close to the bottom of the screen. We're not quite there. So I need to raise it up on the sides. I'm just going to shimmy it up a couple of inches on each side. But we're looking pretty good so far. The sides are swinging a lot more than I anticipated. So I'll definitely be doing some cross bracing on that and tightening everything down. But so far, I'm pretty excited. I've got the screen hung and I just attached the jack shaft. And we're a little bit off the ground, a little bit more than I'd like, but I'm gonna wait to adjust it because I have another Unistrut, but this one's half the width and a little bit lighter than the other. I'd say this is closer to the weight of the conduit, but I wanna use it to pull out the corners with these slots. And so my plan is that I'll be bolting it to the bottom, and hopefully it's gonna stretch out these corners of the screen. So far, this is looking all right. I tightened a few of the bolts. It's not perfectly rigid. I still got a little bit to do, but the direction of it is going really well. So I'm gonna add this weight to the bottom, see where we're at the bottom of the screen, adjust the height one last time, and then hopefully tighten everything up and add the nets.
Many months later.
It's been a few months since I initially started recording, and I've really been using the golf simulator a bunch. I wanted to finish this video, and I realized I didn't finish recording. So I'm talking about the nets. I have 3 nets attached to the screen. I have a top net, a side net, and another side net. Then I actually have a 4th net on the ceiling that stays up attached permanently. When the rest of the screen rolls down, this net stays up here, and it's what I use to attach the top net to. It's really nice because it allows you an uninterrupted top net space that you can get the lob wedge out and just flop shot the heck out of it, and it really just catches and rolls right back down. The 3 nets is a huge improvement over the old setup where I had the gap right here. If you haven't seen my other video, check it out. It's very similar, but I had a large gap up here between this other net, this 4th net, and the screen to allow a short throw projector to come in at a sharper angle, and a lot of balls are sneaking out the top. So I'm really glad I don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm using some shock cord just to intertwine between the squares to keep the nets together. I've got some foam down here at the bottom just to keep some balls from sliding through, and I need to figure out a way to get some foam across this top bar because we've only had 1 ricochet off this top bar, but it came back fast. The way that the net is attached and the way it rolls up, the foam kind of keeps coming off. So I've been storing my foam up here just as a little bit of a ball block, but I need to figure that out. The sides of the net I just have attached to whatever I can fit it to. It's often just the side of my workout rack and the side of my workbench. I just take it and just kind of loop it on there. And that's really it. I have them bolted and bungeed on the back through these same mounting holes that the screen is on. It works pretty well. It's pretty easy. You just loop it through and you're done. I'll have a picture of that next. So I want to get some footage of the back. I have this similar mounting setup that you saw earlier. It's just hanging on the back, and you can see where I have the net attached. I just have a bungee cord going through the Unistrut and just grabbing as much of the net as I can. I've got a very similar layout down at the bottom, where it's just a bungee going all the way around to try and keep the foam on, and then the bungee here holding the net together. I really need to figure out a better way for this foam to attach, but I just have the nets kind of hanging loose. I don't have them that strapped down, and it's worked really well so far. So the bottom of the screen I have attached to the slim Unistrut. I just have a bolt coming through, clamping. This cheap screen's actually ripped a little bit, and I need to get some bigger washers to do a better clamping for us, but I've just used some tarp repair tape in the meantime, and it seems to be holding. And then I've got the foam just over top. The foam isn't staying put all that well, and I've got an idea on how to keep it there, but I haven't actually executed on that yet. So I wanted to show you how I actually get this set up. I've got a monitor up here attached to a Raspberry Pi 400. The Raspberry Pi 400, I have an extra USB Wi-Fi antenna that's really helped with just latency and bandwidth all the way out here in the detached garage, and just kind of getting a little bit better speed because I don't actually run the simulation here. I run the simulation on my regular computer in the house, and then I use something called Moonlight to stream it out to this Raspberry Pi 400. And so I have a command preloaded. I just press the up arrow and it's always ready, but it's Moonlight-QT. It'll launch. And I have an old iPhone here to get the Garmin app to connect to the launch monitor. I'll connect my Raspberry Pi to my desktop. I have a batch script on my computer I'll run to start it all up, and I'll click play. On here, I'll click play on PC. So this is something I've been having some issues with lately, and I'm gonna include this because this really only popped up about 2 weeks ago. On this iPhone, I launched the Garmin app, and then I usually would go to E6 Connect, play on PC, and it would connect to the PC. And when I do that, press that button, I can see that it's connecting to the R10, but the app doesn't actually launch. So what I've found is the workaround is I come up to the gear, enter host and info, I make sure it's correct, it is, and then I'm gonna just spam tap start session, and I can actually grab it. And it'll work just fine like this, but for some reason the session doesn't pop up immediately, which is super annoying. Once I have that set up, I can come in to GS Pro, pick a range or a course. I'll do driving range, and then I grab my remote here to turn on the projector, and I'm pretty much set. And this really saves me a lot of costs not having a PC out here, although I kind of wish I did, so I didn't have to deal with this iPhone app anymore. We'll see if I get a new computer in the next few years. My old one will probably come live a life in the garage to run GS Pro. I haven't really talked about the projector yet. I have replaced my ultra short throw that I found in the garbage for free with an Epson from Facebook Marketplace. That was about $200, and all I really searched for was a decent deal, relatively low hours, and a lot of brightness. This one actually ended up being quite a deal with only 200 hours and a lot of lumens. I'll have it on the screen. I don't remember exactly which one this is, but I've been really happy with it, and I definitely don't regret spending the extra $200 for a used projector. It's been a huge improvement over the free one from the garbage that kicked off this whole golf simulator project, but I would not hesitate to purchase a used one on Facebook Marketplace again. I definitely was searching for a couple of weeks, and you need to be patient and make sure that you're really searching what you're looking for. There were a couple of pretty good deals with sketchy sellers or really high lamp hours, so I got pretty lucky on this one. Some other nice to haves would be this little spotlight. It's great when the lights are off to light up where you're playing from and kind of see your ball and set up a little bit better. I really enjoy that. It's been nice. And I talked about this a lot more in my other video if you want more information, but this is a cheap Go Sports hitting mat. I think it's 5 feet by 4 feet or something like that. And then I have duct tape around the edge, some interlocking foam tiles for like a workout tile, also from Amazon. I'll have all that in the description. It's definitely not the best. It's super playable, and you'll feel it in your elbows a little bit. The extra padding underneath has made a huge improvement on that. But I think if I were to make any more upgrades in the future, I would start looking at mats and screens instead of just the projector and nets. Something else that's actually been a little bit of a game changer for me is this Callaway Pro Caddy. It dispenses balls, which makes it easy, but you can go around and pick. Last thing I'll talk about is the launch monitor itself. I'm using a Garmin R10 that I bought used. It's been pretty nifty. It's definitely a budget option, but it feels accurate. And I've got friends that are way better than me, and they like the yardages and they like the angle of it. There's a little bit of getting used to, especially when you're inside with things around you, and I have a big steel thing above me. But it's really not bad, especially for the price. Of course, there's better options out there, and of course, if it's in your budget, I'd probably recommend you go that route. But I'm cutting corners here. I don't even have a computer out here to run it. And I've been really happy with this, especially when you consider that adding some foil tape, and I've been experimenting with a chrome marker to the balls that it can read the rotations better with the reflections on the radar. It gets a little bit more accurate as well. Of course, you need to make sure you have the proper distances between your ball and the screen, and then your ball and the launch monitor in the back of the garage. But I've been really happy with it. It's been pretty cheap, and it's been really reliable so far. Only in the last 2 weeks or so have I been having issues with the app. But before that, it was really smooth sailing, and I would recommend it still, even with the app issues. So I usually wouldn't play with the lights on, but I wanted to show you why it's so nice to have this top net. When you're right up on the green and you'd use a wedge, you can grab something like a lob wedge and just let it rip without worrying about your drywall as much. Oh. Well, that's pretty much the end of this video. I'm going to talk over me swinging the driver so you can kind of see how the screen moves for a full swing, how much space I have, and just kind of how it all fits together. For about $1,500, I think this has been an awesome setup and a great way to cut some corners and save cost. The Raspberry Pi, not using a second computer, is a huge cost saver. The cheap projector is a big step up from the free projector, and I would recommend that. The cheap screen and cheap hitting mat are good for now, but definitely on my upgrade list in the future. I'm sorry this was so long. I think I like the long video because I can talk about a lot and I can share a lot of what works and how I did things. When I was looking at solutions and ways to build a cheap simulator that I could still drive under, I really wanted to see all the detail and what was out there. If this was kind of boring and you're not going to build this, I totally understand it was too long. But hopefully if you're looking for inspiration, there's something here that you can use. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll keep an eye on the comments, and I'm always happy to talk about it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.